So, vulnerability. Vulnerability requires us to be present fully right here and right now. And in order to be fully present, you must be able to see yourself clearly, you have to be able to see others clearly, and you have to be able to see life around you clearly. So if you were here last week, or maybe you listened to the talk later, you know that I based my lesson on the children's story of the 3 little pigs, remember? Well, today I'm just going to switch species. We're going to go from pigs to mice. So about 5 years ago, I actually based one of my lessons on this particular piece of literature, I suppose. And today I want to kind of revise it, but bring this lesson back because it fits so beautifully today. So we've all heard the little nursery rhyme, 3 blind mice, right? 3 blind mice, 3 blind mice. See how they run, see how they run. They all went after the farmer's wife, who did what? Cut off their tails with a butcher knife, right? Or carving knife, right? So I guess it actually should be more appropriately 3 vision impaired mice. Okay, so we'll just be. And the rhyme must have stuck with me though, because one Halloween I actually dressed up like a farmer's wife, and I had this big cleaver thing, and I took rope and put little bloody ends on it. Like I was carrying the 3 little ropes like tails, and then my friends were dressed like Mickey Mouse ears and blind, like glasses, and they had little white walking sticks or whatever, and they had little nubby little stubs for tails. Anyway, I digress, but it was fun. So this must mean something to me. But anyway, today I want to talk about blindness, or impairment of vision, but just a little bit differently. One that is a little bit more subtle than a physical condition, but somehow also very limiting in our lives. And today I want to talk about a kind of chosen blindness, or a way of thinking about our lives that doesn't serve us, that keeps us trapped in the past and blocked from the power of our vulnerability. So we've been talking all month about how powerful vulnerability is. It is the connection between people. It is the way that we show up in the world. It's also just inherently part of being human. And if we don't tap into that power, we're missing something. So my talk title today is Present Moment Eyes. If we have our present moment eyes open, meaning eyes that are trained on the power of now, we can't have on blinders. We all have blinders, right? You've seen those blinders that they place on horses, right? They're little pieces of metal or leather or whatever they attach to the side of the bridle, right? When Terry and I were riding the carriage in Central Park a few weeks ago, our horse name was Leo, and he had these cute little blinders on, right? And so what those are for is that there are these little masks that block the vision around the horse. So the horse can have a limited line of sight to see what they're supposed to be doing, so they won't get spooked by anything else or distracted by anything else around them, so that they can pay attention to the task at hand, whether that's plowing a field or racing in a race or pulling a carriage or whatever. Blinders. So these might be really great inventions for horses, but for us humans, they really aren't so helpful. Because why? Because we have tasks that we need to do. We have races to run and carriages to pull and fields to plow ourselves, and we need to be able to see. We need to be able to see everything that's going on in this moment. And we need to be able to see where we've been, where we're going, and what's all around us right now. And we also need to see where our intentions are pulling us, because we move in the direction of our vision and our intention. See, if we're wearing any kind of blinders, we tend to have collisions, right? When we aren't aware of something in our blind spot. In Sacred Cup this morning, we talked about our blind spots. Think about this. The more blind spots a vehicle has, the more likely it is that the driver will have an accident, right? That's why many of the safest vehicles have the cameras and extra mirrors and flashers and things that warn you when something's in your blind spot. So I want to ask you today, What is in your mental or spiritual blind spot? Each of us naturally have blind spots because we're still growing, we're still learning about life. But some of us have actually created our own special little personalized blinders to keep us from looking at certain things in our lives. And these blinders presumably are to reduce our feelings of vulnerability because we have a tendency to place painful things in our blind spots, behind our blinders. Why do we do that? We do that so we can avoid thinking about them. We don't want to heal them right now. But I've already said, things that are in our blind spot can tend to wreak a little havoc on our lives when we forget that they are there, right? We're just kind of moseying down the road and bam, something will come out of our blind spot while we're trying to merge perhaps into something new. There it is, right? Sorry, I didn't see that coming, It was in my blind spot. But here are some things that we tend to move out of our line of sight. Things we don't really want to be impacting our present moment. The first one is painful memories, right? So we've all had experience we just as soon forget, right? People who have co-created pain perhaps, or hard lessons or gut-wrenching memories, dump them in the blind spot. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to ignore the impact that it still has on me. Right now, I just want to be blind to that painful thing, right? Another thing we put in our blind spot are mistakes, things that we consider mistakes. Let's put in this category of mistakes all the choices we have made that did not lead to the outcome we expected, because that's what we think is a mistake. We chose something thinking it was going to go one way, it went another way. We call it a mistake. It kind of set us back if we think about it. We would have chosen differently if we had known differently. If we had known the follow of that choice, we might have chosen something different. So I'm just going to put it in the blind spot. I choose to not look at these things that I call mistakes, and I hope that no one else will see them either, because they make me feel what? Vulnerable, right? And another thing we want out of our line of sight is failure. We want failure. Oops, I can't admit that this or that fell apart. My effort, my best laid plans, it still seemed to fail. I had expectations of myself that I didn't meet. Somehow I got on a road that I didn't mean to take, and I failed to reach my original destination. I'd rather not look at that, so I'm going to put it in my blind spot. So we put our failures, our mistakes, and our painful memories into our blind spots, and quite frankly, we hope that nobody else can see them either. If I can't see them, no one else can see them. And in this teaching, we're freeing ourselves from that old paradigm of this sense of literal heaven and hell, right? That's part of what we come to a new kind of spirituality, is to get away from this heaven and hell thing. Both of those things, heaven and hell, are ways of living in this life, not in an afterlife. So I think that living with blinders on is an absolute hell. We're constantly covering our eyes anytime one of these denied things kind of pops up into our existence or into our conversation. We just kind of break into a sweat anytime we're around something similar to that, praying and hoping that our buttons won't get pushed, right? So I want to talk a little bit about heaven and hell. Shared this the other day in Sacred Cup, and maybe you've heard me talk about it before too. So here's what heaven is. You want to hear what heaven is? Heaven on earth is when you get born into a family that absolutely wants and loves you. They're prepared for you. They're ready for you. The siblings that are waiting for you are so excited to have you, right? And you just live in this beautiful house, and you're all good, and you go to school, and you have no problem making friends, and you study well, you get good grades, you play a sport or maybe an instrument or something, and everything goes well. You go into college and you pick the major. That's the study you keep, and you go all the way through that to a career, and along the way you marry a sweetheart, You just stay with them forever, and you have some kids and a dog and a cat and a white fence, and then you know, everybody gets along. You stay in that career until you die at a very old age, surrounded by everybody you love. That's heaven, right? That's heaven. Raise your hand if that describes your life. So what is hell? So what is hell? My personal understanding of hell is this. We are venturing into hell when we start judging every one of our experiences that does not fit in that little narrow channel of acceptance. And we start trying to shove everything in, like trying to push this thing in, right? In. One way of being in hell is when we get trapped in this pattern of blaming anything and anyone that took us outside of that heavenly little path. Anyone who caused anything to go awry is blamed. They're horrible people, right? The bully or the criminal or the politician or the betrayer or whatever. They're the ones that wrecked my life. Hell is not even being willing to look at our lives and claim our stories. Hell is giving up and feeling like our life is wasted because it's never going to get back over there. I'm so far off that track, never going to get over there. Hell is walling ourselves off to pretend that we aren't vulnerable. That's hell. The bottom line is that every definition of hell boils down to the personal perspective that life as it is not enough. It's not good enough. As I am not enough. We need to have Jesse's song playing in our heads all the time. I am enough. I have enough. I do enough. I am loved, right? So much of our lives we don't even want to look at because they don't look like that. So now that we're clear with what hell is and we know that this isn't heaven, it's not even possible, so what is heaven? What is heaven here? We've got to look at our life differently. We've got to take our blinders off and actually peer intently at our lives from a different perspective, from a spiritually informed, present day perspective. Remember those 3 blind mice I started talking about? Well, for this talk, I think the mice just had blinders on. And if we take their blinders off, maybe they're not blind anymore. And I want to talk about these 3 blind mice and their particular blinders and see if we can relate to any of them and see if we can invite ourselves to remove those blinders too. So let's just say the first mouse was blind to the blessing. No matter what your story, no matter what you have labeled as painful or as a failure or as a mistake, there is a blessing in it. So don't be like the mouse. Look. Hell is denying that there's even a blessing there for you, or not even looking for it. But out of every situation, you can choose to see it as right or wrong or good or bad or hard or easy, but the fact is, it just is. Everything happens in your life for you. There is a gift in it. What could those gifts be? Perhaps it's the gift of uncovering a new strength or a personal power. Perhaps it's the gift of learning to forgive or learning something else that's equally valuable. Maybe it's a new connection or a new friendship that's inside that experience that you're calling a mistake. Because at the end of a job or at the end of a relationship, there's new stuff. There's a new freedom. There's a new opportunity for greater possibility. Perhaps an end to a discomfort was there, contained within a diagnosis that you really don't want to have. Maybe a new focus on health or well-being or a new appreciation for life. And if we remove this blinder to the blessing, blessings start showing up in a pretty heavenly way. We can gaze at ourselves in a mirror and love what we see and love the journey that brave person in the mirror is on. So let's not be blind to the blessings. We deserve them. If we're in a challenging situation, let's mine for that blessing. Let's look for it. Let's turn over every rock in every situation, knowing that there's a blessing in there somewhere. Let's say the second mouse, he's blind to personal power. Ever been blind to your own personal power, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have this blinder on, you're playing small, you only see your inherent vulnerability, thinking that that is the truth or the wholeness of what you are. You may be simply accepting other people's opinions about your lack of power. And a lot of times, the opinions they're holding are not about you at all. They're about themselves, and they're projecting it onto you. A lot of times, these opinions are not even informed by your current state of powerful beingness. Because so many people's opinions that we care about, they're from our past anyway. They don't even know us right here. And this blinder makes you not want to rock the boat, right? You just don't want to step into your personal power because you might rock the boat. You might change something that someone else finds comfortable. And when we have this blinder in place, we may believe that we are the victim of forces beyond our control, and other people have caused our pain and our situation that we're in, so I don't have any power. It's all their fault anyway. We can always find something to blame and give our power away. Maybe we've given our power away to the environment or to the economy or to the government or the company or our parents or our family. We're handing our power to everybody else. We're blind to our own personal power. And this particular blinder is one of the first to go when we come into the science of mind. Why? Because here we learn that we co-create our experiences. But we also learn the bad news that we co-create our experiences. It's both. Because taking full responsibility of our lives means that we claim our personal power to change our lives. We claim our personal power to decide who we are and who we shall be. This mouse doesn't seem to stay blind very long around here because we soon learn that there's more to the human level of living. There is a powerful spiritual level of living. So after we find the blessing in it, after we find our power, we got to start identifying some new thoughts and new choices that we can make. And then we have to remove this third blinder. The third mouse was blind to possibility. Man, we all wear this blinder. Depending on the situations we find ourselves, we just can't see anything possible. Sometimes when we are wearing this blinder, we're stuck in a pattern that no longer serves us, especially if there are patterns that keep us safe and away from being vulnerable. Let me just create this structure. I don't want to see anything new. You know, if we get terminated from a job in a painful way and we felt like it was a failure, we may cling to an unfulfilling position because it keeps us safe. It keeps us secure. If a relationship came to an unexpected end, we may create a limiting power that blocks new relationships from forming. Or, as happens here many times, if we come here religiously wounded, we may not want to even look at another spiritual path. We may not even want to consider a new possibility or a new belief of faith. Because most of us have a limited view of possibility in one part of our lives or another. Can I see a head shake, right? We sometimes are blind to it. And removing this blinder allows us to consider the reality of the infinite nature of the divine. We cannot even fathom the possible ways that Spirit may provide solution to a question or an answer to a problem. But unless we're open to all possibilities, we have the limiting potential to see them. So if we take off these blinders, if we take them off, we're free to see ourselves from a different perspective right here and right now. This philosophy helps us. And I want to share but it's not easy. I want to share what Ernest Holmes said about it. He says, this is not an easy philosophy. It is the toughest that ever confronted the mind and imagination of humankind. What it says is this: do you wish to be loved? Then stop hating. Do you want to be happy? Then be sure that you are never the occasion for unhappiness in others. Do you wish to stop shedding tears? Then be sure that you are never the instrument which causes others to shed them. That's from Living the Science of Mind. So in order for us to stop hating, stop being an occasion for unhappiness and tears, we've got to clearly know what we are creating with our thoughts and our choices. And if we're going to do that, if we're going to be clearly aware of all of that, we can't have on blinders. We can't have them on. We've got to look carefully at our experiences and the people around us and practice radical forgiveness for ourselves and others. Then we're invited to make a new choice and have a new experience. And we do all of that with our present moment eyes wide open, looking purposefully into any blind spot. And then we can be as free as possible from fear and from limited thinking. I found this beautiful poem by Monica Rapazzo that could be our prayer today, and I'm going to close with reading it. I amended it slightly for our purposes. She writes, "Open the eyes of my heart that I may see what lies beneath my breath, that I may perceive what lies behind my back, that I may endure finitely. Open the eyes of my spirit that I may see what comes ahead with evidence of the invisible, that I may perceive what brings with my destiny, that I may hope without fear. Open the ears of my voice that I may hear that I speak and speak that I hear, that I may speak forth what I have seen and heard, speaking my desire into practice. Feasting amid the majestic, meditating amid the terror dreamers, breathing without lungs but truth and faith, creating and constructing castles in the desert. Open mine eyes, I say, so I can dream of what is bound to be. Open my yes, open my eyes, and let me see. Let me see the healing of the wounds of sorrow and the blessing of my innocence to be even more righteous. Let me see. Open my eyes and let me see." Isn't that beautiful? And I pray that someday you see yourself as I see you. Let's repeat our one sentence affirmation. Today, I allow myself to see and be seen in this present moment. And so it is.